Everyone, yesterday I had blogged about whether Gen AI helped me set up my initial business. And so I just started an LLC and I'm using Gen AI to try and do everything. And so I was going through my experience and I wrote down all the questions I was trying to get answered and I was rating Gen AI on whether it could do it or not. So did it help me figure out what kind of corporation to form? What should I name it? What is a good tagline? Helped it generate a logo. And through all of this, I was documenting what my experience was and whether it actually worked or whether it did not work. The big learning, obviously, was that if I was not an expert in a domain, then I was finding it hard to actually just completely trust and use ChatGPT or GenAI. But if I was an expert in a domain, things that I really knew what I wanted, then it was just a big game changer. But the big question I had was it took me, let's say, about half an hour to then write this whole blog post. And I keep hearing from everybody about how they use GenAI and ChatGPT to generate blogs. And I was like, there is no way that GenAI could actually generate a blog like this. I mean, it talks about my experience. How would it even know to do that? So, as I'm running this experiment, the next question is, could I actually try and see what would GenAI do and is it even possible? So this is my meta experiment. And so obviously, as you all know, the key to generating anything with Gen AI is you got to give it the prompt. And so I took all my experience from writing the previous blog and I basically typed it all out here. So I just started my new LLC, needed help with figuring out if I should do an LLC, S Corp or C Corp, coming up with a name for my LLC, a tagline, a new logo. In addition, I needed to find a company to register my LLC, set up a new domain and an email server. And then I just talked through how I wanted to use ChatGPT to help me with this process. And I wanted to know if ChatGPT was useful or not, and that could it rate each of these steps on a scale of 1 to 3. And I basically said, gave it some more context on what I had actually written on and what I had used Gen AI for in terms of how I came up with the name and the logo and what I wanted. And I said, can you now use all of this and generate a blog about my experience using Gen AI and ChatGPT to start my own business? And it is fascinating what it generated. So it talks about my journey with ChatGPT, launching our family LLC. And so it puts a nice little starting blurb, which talks about how starting a new business is exciting, talks about what we were trying to do. And then it took each one of them. It said choosing the right business entity, LLC, S Corp, or C Corp. And so it talked through, really, I mean, talked through my challenges and talked about how useful it was and the fact that I had to call a friend to actually then validate and make sure, because while it gave me all the information, I wasn't sure. Then when it came to the name, it was like, yep, we came up with a name, very useful. It talked about how it was very useful in developing the tagline. It was very self-aware about the fact that when it came to designing the logo, it had certain limitations. And then when it came to company registration and setting up the online presence, it gave itself a rating of 1, and it gave itself some final thoughts. So now comparing this with what I had written, you can see a lot of the scores were pretty much similar. This, it was useful, but I needed to call a friend. This, what I should name it, I gave it a 3. It gave itself a 3. Tagline, it gave itself a 3. As you can see, the things it did not do was come up with these kind of details. Now I'm pretty sure that if I had prompted it properly, it might have even generated some of these examples. Generating a logo, again, I gave it a 2, gave itself a 2. I gave it a 1, unlike the rest of the steps. So it's fascinating. I mean, the learning here is that if you are going to use ChatGPT to do something, maybe first start off by just asking it, like, are you good at this task? And then it's going to tell you whether you should even bother with it or not. And I might have saved myself some time with the logo piece. So, very, very fascinating experience. I can see where people are leveraging it to actually generate blogs. It's not completely personalized in this case. The voice is not there, but if I wanted to quickly generate something. Now, the point I will make is that I still had to give it the prompt for it to generate the blog. And so here's the question: is it worth it? I probably spent about half an hour writing the article. I had written the article, so I knew exactly what I wanted. So it was easy for me to come up with the prompt. But it still took me like 10, 15 minutes to come up with the prompt. And I'm thinking, if I didn't know and I hadn't written the article, to come up with a prompt And then once, this is what happens, then, it gives it something, then you're like, oh, I would like to tweak it. So here I was like, hey, can I add more detail, and maybe it'll generate more information. But then you'll notice one thing it does do is, because it's Gen AI, the next thing it generates something different. And so here it says my journey with ChatGPT. I like this, launching a family LLC. Now here talks about navigating business foundations with ChatGPT, a personal journey, changes some of these top things around. Um, and so, it does tweak things around. It doesn't generate the logo. And so you do end up going back and forth with ChatGPT to make it better and to tweak it. And so overall, I'm not really sure if it really saves me time, but I'm curious to get other people's thoughts. Thank you.